College football is changing, and it's changing quick. Over the last 3 years, we've seen three big monumental changes to college football. And my question for you is, does it make the game better? Between the transfer portal that we saw 3 years ago come into play, NIL, and now conference realignment, the game is changing, and a lot of people think it's changing for the better. So I'm thinking that it's changing for the worse. I'm going to be breaking down what all three means and if this really is good for college football. And I want to start with the transfer portal. This is something that we saw a few years ago. Poor Jacob Eason was the only guy who missed the transfer portal. He transferred from Georgia to Washington. Of course, had to sit out. The year after that, Justin Fields transfers to Ohio State, has immediate eligibility. That's just where we are right now. Kids can transfer willy-nilly to one program or another and don't really have to sit out at all. So kids want to play, and they want to play for specific coaches. They want to get on the field, and they want to leave early and then go to the NFL. So, recruiting is important, right? You want to bring in the best players possible, but we're seeing it in every recruiting class at Georgia. A lot of these guys transfer. If you don't make it, if you're not playing in the next couple of years, your first 2 years at least, you're going to leave. And we see talented 4 and sometimes 5-stars sign with Georgia and leave for other programs either because they can't cut it, they don't like the work ethic that Kirby Smart and the staff puts on them, or they just want a different scene and go to a place where they can play more. They might not be able to win, but they're going to play and see the field. So I think that drastically changed college football. A lot of the old timers I know did not like it. They thought it was bad for the sport. Just being able to just transfer, willy-nilly whenever. If you decide you don't like a coach or don't like your playing time, a lot of people want you to, guys to push through it. But in today's day and age, if you're not playing, you're not going to get noticed by the NFL scouts. So yes, it's cool to play for a program like Georgia for at least a year or two, or Ohio State, or, whoever. But at the end of the day, if you're not playing, you have to leave, especially if you're a quarterback. You can't sit on the bench forever, and there's only one starting quarterback on each roster. So you don't see a lot of that happening with defensive linemen and offensive linemen. But if receivers aren't getting the ball, if running backs aren't getting the ball, if quarterbacks are sitting behind, 1 or 2 guys, they're going to transfer. And that has drastically changed the college football landscape and how teams recruit. Teams often recruit the transfer portal before they offer, a high school kid. And that's where they're going. And guys can bring, a chance to play early and help a team immediately through the transfer portal more than a kid coming out of high school can. So a few years ago, we saw the transfer portal change college football. Now it's NIL, name, image, and likeness. We're seeing kids get paid as soon as they get on campus. And you're not supposed to tell these kids when you're recruiting them, hey, we're going to give you this deal, and this deal. But as we've seen at Texas A&M, Jimbo Fisher, just a trash can liar, just telling everyone he's doing it the right way, even though Texas A&M has been playing football for 100 years and they have 0 trophies. They have an empty trophy case. It's filled with dust and cobwebs, but somehow he lands, 10 5-star prospects and the #1 recruiting class, one of the best we've seen all time. He's using NIL. Everyone's using NIL. Now I think technically you're supposed to recruit them and say, we have opportunities for you in the future if you can play, and then companies will come to you and, work out a deal. But we're seeing schools now say, hey, if you come here, we will give you X amount of dollars through this company, this company, this company. There's a giant gray area, and it's something that has to be fixed in college football, or else it's going to just derail off the deep end. But we're seeing programs with big money boosters like Miami and Tennessee and other programs, of course, Texas A&M and Texas, throwing out big money and telling these kids, hey, if you come here, we can give you this amount of money immediately the day you step on campus. I think Miami is about to land a quarterback, or they have by now, by the time you're watching this video, $9.5 million, I think was the report. He turned down $11 million from Florida. You're seeing these crazy numbers being thrown at, especially at quarterbacks. I think Tennessee gave their quarterback commit, 5-star kid from the West Coast, multi-million-dollar deals. And it's good for the kids right now because they're getting that money. But if these kids go out and throw 3 interceptions in their first start against a rival, it's going to look really bad. And fans are going to come after these kids, and the media members are going to come after these kids. It's going to look bad on the coaches as well. So as good as it is, I think these players, if they play well and they see their jerseys out in the stands, they should be able to get some money, right? And if the local Ford company in the area wants to come and do a deal with the kid, they should be able to make that money. They're bringing in a lot of money for the school. They should be able to have some for themselves. But right now, that like there's no limit, there are really no rules, and we're seeing programs like Texas A&M tell kids, hey, I mean, they're basically buying up. Nick Saban was right. Jimbo Fisher is wrong, and he should accept it. He should come out and say, hey, we are using NIL in recruiting. Instead, he's saying they're doing it the right way, whatever that is, because these kids would never go to Texas A&M without this NIL money. I mean, that is basic common sense. And, a lot of Georgia players are getting NIL money too. And a lot of it is whether you're a 5-star or 4-star too, right? I mean, that makes a difference. And especially if you're a quarterback going to a big money program, you're going to get a fat NIL deal. That's just how it is. And again, a lot of old timers who didn't like the transfer portal don't like the idea of NIL and players basically getting paid, but it is what it is. That's college football, and that's the direction that it's been heading for a while. So either learn or adapt. I know Dabo Swinney at Clemson does not like this, and he's going to get left behind. Clemson's going to take a step back if they don't start offering NIL deals to their players when they get on campus. That has to be a recruiting pitch. Kirby's using it. Nick Saban's using it. Whether he wants to admit it or not, Jimbo Fisher obviously not admitting it, but I mean, it's out there. There was a video of an assistant coach at Texas A&M pointing up to the suites and saying, y'all are getting paid, talking to prospective recruits on a visit. Y'all are getting paid because of the people sitting behind those suites. He didn't think that video would get out, but it did. And he's being real. And I wish more college coaches would be real, but again, there's no perfect way to do it. And so there's a lot of gray area, and coaches are doing everything they can to align themselves with recruits saying, hey, you can get this amount of money if you come here. So that's another big deal in college football right now. And then, of course, conference realignment. The Big 12 died this time last year when Texas and Oklahoma announced they were going to the SEC. And this week it was announced that the Pac-12 is about officially dead now, with USC and UCLA moving to the Big 10. It's only going to happen more and more. The Pac-12 is going to dissolve. Oregon, Washington, Stanford, they're going to have to find a place to go, or else they're going to be playing in the back seat and no one's going to watch those games. They're not going to be able to recruit. No one's going to want to play in that region or the conference, whatever. The Big 10 is about dead. And the ACC, that's going to get dissolved soon, I think. I think Miami is going to leave for the SEC or Big 10. North Carolina could join the SEC. Clemson is basically an SEC program playing out there. So it's weird to see and know that, UCLA might play a noon game at Rutgers across the country in the snow, which is basically 9 a.m. over there. I mean, geographically, it's weird to kind of watch it all play out. But at the end of the day, it would be cool to see USC and Ohio State play a regular season game, or USC and Michigan. UCLA is in a tough spot because they could barely compete in the Pac-12. Now they're playing in a much tougher conference. They're barely going to win 4 or 5 games every year unless that program really takes a step forward. But it's going to be a college football world and landscape of 2 mega conferences, the Big 10. They're going to have to rename it since they have like 16, 18 teams eventually. And then the SEC bringing in the top dogs. And the SEC has dominated not only college football, but college sports recently. That's where the big boys play. That's where the big time recruits want to play. And it looks like you're going to have 2 major conferences with 20 plus teams in it sooner than later. So these ACC teams are going to have to move. Everyone basically is. They're going to have to pick which conference we want to be in, which will accept us. And if they don't, they're going to get left behind in a big way. So again, college football is changing. I think a lot of it is for the better, but I understand if people don't like it. But if you don't want to watch, that's on you, because college football is still the greatest sport in the country. And it's exciting. You don't want to have the same thing over and over and over. I think progress makes the game better, and we're going to see a lot of crazy matchups. I mean, there's going to be times where Georgia plays Texas and Oklahoma in the regular season, while Michigan is playing Penn State or Wisconsin or Ohio State. And I think that's really cool. And I think programs like Miami, who are on the rise, it'd be cool to see Georgia play Miami if that were the case, or Miami play somewhere. Notre Dame has to join a conference soon, or else they're never going to be in the Final Four in the playoff. They're going to have to join a conference whether they like to or not. And if they join the Big 10, then I think they could possibly rival the SEC one day if they continue to get better and USC becomes a national power, and maybe Michigan or Penn State continue to get better, I guess. But the SEC is where the big boys play, and they're only going to get better, and they're going to continue to dominate college sports for a while now. But between NIL, transfer portal, and college realignment, The game is changing. It's not your granddad's college football, and I think that it only makes it more exciting to have all these different elements coming into play. So what do you think? Drop a comment in the comments section. We love looking at those. Appreciate y'all watching this video. As always, stay tuned to the next one coming up right now, and I'll see you over on Dog Post.